Yes, a very mellow NPR welcome to Publitarian Podcast. Of course, I am Ronald Johnson, welcoming you to Publitarian Podcast. And it has been a minute, y'all. Man, I don't even know what episode we're up to now. That's how long it's been since I've recorded a podcast episode. I had to go look. We're up to episode 114. I didn't realize that. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a little break, and decompress. I didn't realize that the last time I recorded a podcast episode was October 20th. So yeah, it's been a while. Today is December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. Of course, remembering all of those that served and sacrificed and stood up to the Axis years and years and years ago. It's a sacrifice that I can't even imagine, and we should, even in 2021, be grateful for what those people did for us and for the United States and for the world, and for freedom around the world. I know it gets lost a lot, and it's like hyperbolic when people talk about, the military defending freedom, and you get into all this wonkery of, the military-industrial complex and yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day, Marines, airmen, sailors, soldiers, they sign their name, and they go do shit that you wouldn't do, and that's it. I mean, you can debate semantics, why we're doing what we're doing, where we've been, why we've been, all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, the boots on the ground do shit that you wouldn't be willing to do. And I think they should be, honored for that. So that's my 2 cents on that. I didn't even mean to get into that. This was kind of, remembering that it was Pearl Harbor Day, I was just going to record like a light, funny podcast episode and just catch people up on the news of the day. There hasn't been much happening in the Publitarian front. I haven't been sharing as many memes. Politically, our side of the aisle has been getting some W's, and that's been good. That's been encouraging. On social media, the big tech giant social medias like Instagram, yada yada, it looks like the shadow bans have been lifted on a lot of these accounts, including mine. And that has been encouraging because I still like to, share my message with people that have not been red-pilled yet. The Publitarian drink of the day is whiskey poured into a glass. So shout out to Rachel, my fellow whiskey connoisseur. Here's to you. So there's been a lot going on in the news. And because of this new podcast format that I do with the software, I don't have the time because everything gets recorded live. I don't have the time to look up stuff and source stuff. So, and I like giving super accurate information. So in order for you guys not to listen to a bunch of stammers and pauses and dead air when I look up stuff, that's how come I haven't been reporting a lot of news of the day, unless it's just something I can recall from my head. One of the funnier articles that I saw this morning, this was from Vice News. So I guess the Jussie Smollett court case is happening, the trial right now, and he's having to take the stand, and he said that he masturbated with one of his attackers, his alleged attackers, and I think that in itself, hold on, I'm just going to have a drink. That in itself is ridiculous enough. That's a real headline from Vice News. Again, not a right-wing publication by any stretch of the imagination. What's funny about that is everybody, I think even hardcore leftists, knew from the very beginning that fetch wasn't going to happen as far as this Jussie Smollett case went. We all knew it was bullshit. Okay, so some right-wing, redneck, MAGA supporters with a noose at 3 a.m. in Chicago knew that you were the gay actor from the show Empire. Okay, so let's just start. We don't even need to unpack that. Let's just start right there. Like, that should disqualify the story right there. And gosh, he went on like mainstream media and, and all these crocodile tears. Everybody knew it was bullshit. Even hardcore leftists, even like their comedians knew it was bullshit. And they were like, oh God, you know. But Kamala Harris, and all of the other people played their parts and was like, oh, poor guy, you know, justice for him. We all knew that was BS. It was just total BS from the start. So now that's going to unravel. Once that gets unpacked, that will get swept under the rug like everything else that doesn't fit the narrative. And I don't need to beat a dead horse and talk to you guys about the state of media, not even in this country, but in the world. Like in Western society, the media that should be the biggest truth teller has become the enemy. It's not has become. It's been, decades like this, like a slow boil, but it's the Soviet Union had a propaganda machine, their wing of media. It was called Pravda. And that's what this has become. It's become just Pravda. And people that actually report the news, or even just try to be straight down the middle and give you facts, get censored. And it's ridiculous. That's the state of media now. And yes, there is spin on the right, just as there is spin on the left. And these news media organizations are profit-making companies. So yes, they're gonna quote unquote give their audience what they want. But what makes me mad about that is like people on the left can't see that they're being propagandized. Yes, the right will give you like clickbaity stuff like that, and they will spin stories, but I just don't see the amount of just upright lying and gaslighting like I do on the left side of the media. And I try to consume both and come away with a picture, and it's just it's really hard nowadays. And speaking of which, laughably yesterday, a story in the media, Brian Stelter, George Costanza, as he is better known, Mr. Potato Head, on Reliable Sources. Funny enough, that's the name of his show on CNN, Reliable Sources. Had this guest on his show, and he said there is an algorithm that has shown that the news media is treating Joe Biden more unfairly than they treated Donald Trump. And what can you say to that? Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I just, like, really, again, even the most hardcore of leftists, like, statistically, the news media, when they ran the numbers, was 97% negative against Trump. You're telling me that the mainstream news media is 98, 99, 100% against Joe Biden? Again, Pravda gaslighting. So CNN swerves into a story, almost has some journalistic integrity, and then they bring this guy on to do damage control. God, what was the guy's name? I can't remember it now. But he's like an Obama and Biden stooge from way back, and he's like, oh yeah, there's this algorithm that proves that the news media is not treating Joe Biden as good as they did Trump, and it's just so beyond the pale laughable that I just couldn't even process it when I heard it. And I was like, that is Pravda. That is the ultimate gaslighting. Lying to your face, lying with impunity, lying directly to your face, and lying over and over again until you believe it. If you think I'm making stuff up on that, look at MSNBC and news outlets like that. They're still running bad Trump stories. They're still promoting Russian collusion and all this other BS that didn't happen. That Russian collusion story was made up. It was literally made up from whole cloth from Glenn Simpson. Fusion GPS. Look up Glenn Simpson, Fusion GPS. He had ran a story decades ago about John McCain and when McCain was running for president, and flirting with the Russians. And McCain happened to have two guys in his orbit that, well, especially Manafort, that maybe had some like questionable dealings, but nothing like Russian espionage. It was just a dude in the political sphere trying to make money, like almost 100% of Washington D.C. But because he was working for a Republican, then it was a problem. So these two people ended up in Trump's orbit, not by accident, I don't think. I think the staff pickers, as we've seen now in the Trump presidency, it was meant to sabotage him from the start. So he comes in not knowing anything, never been a politician, becomes president, and he's like, all right, so who do we got? Who's gonna be my picks? And he starts listening to advisors, and notice everybody that they picked was somebody going to stop him. The only reason Azar stayed around as health secretary is because Azar didn't get on his bad side. So he just kind of stayed in the background and kept Big Pharma happy. Tillerson was going to keep Big Oil happy. So notice every pick was like a successful person, but a successful person in, globalist, elitist politics. And the people that really did have his back got squeezed out by staffers like Bannon and Gorka. Anyway, I went off on a Trump rant there. I wasn't meaning to do that, but anyway, so yeah, Pravda, media, BS, and it's getting harder and harder to get the truth. Like where do you get your truth from? Even like DuckDuckGo, when you use DuckDuckGo as a search engine, like the first page of results that you get have like a left-leaning spin now, and it's getting harder and harder to decipher the truth. And what I tell people is just you got to do your homework. Do not take a narrative, even if it's right-wing. Don't take a narrative and run with it. Like, it's going to sound squishy of me, and I don't mean it to. A lot of the time, the truth really does lie in the middle somewhere of these two narratives. Yes, there's right. Yes, there's wrong. And yes, there's right, yes, there's left. But sometimes the truth really is in the middle, and context does matter. And if you're not careful, especially people on the right, because we are, a liberty-loving people, we will fall prey to this clickbaity crap that happens from the right. The right is just as guilty of it sometimes. I said all that to say, really start doing your homework. When you see something on social media, don't repost. Do your homework on it, or you can repost it with context, because the truth is the only thing that will set us free. I mean, as long as we can, still say the truth. I even have liberal friends of mine that are talking about Twitter and what a dumpster fire that it has become. Of course, those of us on the right know that it's been a dumpster fire for years, but now that the algorithm has started to pick apart people on the left, they're going to start looking for other places to go on social media. Here's the bad point. Here's the bad part. They don't have anywhere to go. Because if they go to, well, Ronald, there's alternatives. Yeah, there's political alternatives. And this is going to move into the next topic that I was going to talk about, even though I was trying to keep this podcast light. Conservatives and right-wingers poo-poo culture and entertainment. They have no use for it. They're always in like what the medical profession would call crisis mode. They're always trying to fix the heart attack, the cancer, the big stuff, while ignoring the small things like diet and exercise. So, diet and exercise is culture and media, and the right always ignores that and goes straight to the heart attack, straight to the back surgery, straight to the the life-saving stuff, instead of going, hey, long-term, what should we be doing? And I am an artist. I'm a musician. On my personal side of things, I've tried making art for these alternate platforms, like the right-leaning, I guess you would call them, platforms like Parler and Getter and all this stuff. And I posted my stuff, and I'm like, hey, here's my stuff, share my stuff. And of course, I mean, you guys might go, oh, well, maybe your music isn't good. No, like literally any art that gets put out, even stuff that I think is like top tier, just gets swept aside with either political news or political clickbait. And that's the problem. We don't engage in the culture. And I guarantee there's somebody listening to this podcast going, well, that shit doesn't matter. We're trying to save the country. Yeah. And that's why we continue to lose. Because you cannot see the forest for the trees. Culture wins. I've said this a jillion times, and so have other of my, right-leaning brethren and sistren on radio and podcasts and every other type of media. Andrew Breitbart famously said, politics is downstream of culture. He got it. Culture is what moves the politics. The left figured this out back in the late 60s. And they have been moving that needle? What's an eagle? I don't know. But, and I can't edit this stuff out either because of the new software. They have been moving that needle and that goalpost for decades. And as Red Pilled America states, conservatives just totally surrendered it all. Oh yeah, art, culture, that doesn't matter. Of course Hollywood's a bunch of liberals. That doesn't matter. It's just entertainment. Entertainment shapes culture. Culture shapes politics. Politics, as Michael Knowles says, is the business of the public. When people say they don't want to get into politics, that means you don't want to get in the business of the public, which of course everybody wants to be in the public somehow, in the public square. So when people think politics, they think this partisan left-wing, right-wing thing, and that's not the case. Politics is the business of the public, in especially the culture. And another thing Knowles talks about, which is funny because he's kind of like what I would call like a conservative Inc. guy, and he's one of the few over at that outfit, the Daily Wire, that get it. And I'm not trying to throw stones because haters hate up, and the Daily Wire is successful. It's just there's really not my cup of tea, with the exception of Michael Knowles. And I think he's the only one over there sounding the alarm, going, "Hey, culture matters." And it does. And that's what I've been trying to get people on my side of the aisle. I have promoted artists on my page before. I've been like, hey, check these artists out. Carmen Scober, she also posts stuff like a non-woke list of businesses you can support, artists you support. And it doesn't matter. If it doesn't hit the main waves like YouTube or something like that, it just does not get any play. Any traction. So there is a conservative, quote unquote, alternative to anything out there that you want to engage in. But the problem with that is the people that make these companies make them so overtly over the top conservative, red, white, and blue, yah, patriot, that it would just any moderate or even sort of left leaning person wouldn't even engage in it. Rumble, which is the free speech version of YouTube, I would call it. They're the only ones getting sort of traction is because they've invited some big names to come over. Crowder's over there now. I'm pretty darn sure PewDiePie's over there now too, because YouTube's algorithm has finally squashed creators enough that they're trying to find something else. They're kind of moving the needle. So, we are fighting back. I'm not trying to just, black pill you and send you to an abyss. But anybody that's listening to this, I just want to encourage and implore you to start engaging in the culture. And I know I can hear what you're saying. Well, the culture is just all godless rot. Yeah, I know, because you haven't been engaging in it. And that's the problem. Our side of the aisle does not, and I've said this before on my podcast, our side of the aisle does not know how to fight a multi-pronged battle. We just want to go, hey, where's the enemy? Let's go get it. Liberals are masters at this. While you're defeating them in one theater, they're over in another theater conquering it. They move just like water in the cracks of pavement. They find the nooks and the crannies and they exploit them. And we can't do that. We want to face the enemy head on, truth, justice, the American way, while they're, stabbing us in the back. So again, just a gentle, not so gentle encouragement to start engaging in culture. Start having these talks. If you are any kind of creative person, start creating art, start creating shows, comedy, animation, music. Stuff that's not squeaky clean, Christian conservative, campy content. It's stuff that will actually engage people. And then we can start turning the ship around and also fight the political battles. I saw where 80 Republicans signed off on this vaccine database thing. And I always feel like I have to say this. It's like putting, credence to something, but like, I am not anti-vaccine. I am anti somebody telling you to get a vaccine. I think that's a slippery slope, and we're starting to see the repercussions of that happening in Australia and Europe. And if you haven't heard about it, it's because you watch mainstream news. It's a dangerous spot to be in, and 80 Republicans sold us out. If you check any of our like right-leaning social media, you'll see the names, the Republicans. A lot of them are just names that I'm not even like. Of course they did. So I said all that to say, fight the social battle, fight the political battle, and fight the culture battle. We can do all of it. And for those of you that say, oh, culture doesn't matter, the art stuff is all BS, we just need to save the country, you're going to continue to lose. Like, if you don't want to fight it, that's fine. But don't throw water on the people that are trying to fight it. And I guess that will do it for this edition of Publitarian Podcast. If you want to reach out to me, you can. I am publitarian@protonmail.com. And I am on all the social medias as Publitarian. And I post, I'm even on Locals, as unintuitive as that is. But like, I'm literally on all the social medias. I don't engage that much on a lot of them. Instagram is still my bread and butter. But yeah, if you want to reach out to me, you can. That's where I'm at. I will keep posting the memes. And I will try to do more podcasts. We will see. But yeah, so that will do it on this edition of Publitarian Podcast. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening.